The stockings were pulled tight against my legs, the paisley dress settling against my body like it had been waiting all along. Standing there in front of my sister's bedroom mirror, my reflection wasn't just different. It was alive. The problem wasn't how I looked. The problem was how right it felt. But then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a car pulling into our driveway. My secret moment was about to end, and I wasn't ready. Not even close. Looking back now, 35 years later, I understand that afternoon differently than I did when I was 15. It wasn't just about trying on clothes or satisfying curiosity. It was about discovering a part of myself that had been waiting patiently in the shadows my entire life. The moment I put on that paisley dress, something clicked into place. It wasn't just that I looked different. I felt different. More complete. More myself than I had ever felt in jeans and t-shirts. The silk slip against my skin felt natural, like it belonged there. The way the dress moved when I walked, the gentle restriction of the stockings, even the ritual of applying makeup, all of it felt right in a way I couldn't explain. That feeling never left me. My name is Michael, and this is the story of one afternoon in the late 80s that changed how I feel and what I knew about myself. It's about discovery, fear, and the unexpected kindness that can come from the people who know us best. But most of all, it's about that first moment when you see yourself, really see yourself, for who you might be. Picture this. Reagan was president, MTV actually played music videos, and fashion was, well, let's just say it was a time when self-expression came in bright colors and bold patterns. I was 15, living in suburban Ohio with my parents and my older sister Sarah. She was 17, popular, confident, everything I felt I wasn't. Every morning I'd watch her get ready for school. The mini dresses, the leg warmers, the way she'd apply her makeup with such precision. My classmates wore similar outfits, dance team uniforms during pep rallies, party dresses for school dances, and I'd watch, telling myself it was just curiosity, just wondering what it would be like. But curiosity has a way of growing into something deeper, something more urgent, especially when you're 15 and trying to figure out who you are in a world that seems to have very clear ideas about who you should be. I wonder, even now, why she never confronted me. Was it a way to admonish me? A warning never to touch her things again? Or was it something else entirely? An olive branch of acceptance? A way of saying, I know who you are, and it's okay. I'll never know for certain, because we never spoke about it. Not that day, not ever, because she died a few years later. Just like yesterday. The house was usually busy. Mom working her evening shifts at the hospital. Dad traveling for business. Sarah with her endless social calendar. But that particular Thursday afternoon in October, something rare happened. The house was completely, perfectly empty. For once, the closet was mine. I'd walked past Sarah's bedroom door a dozen times that afternoon, each time slowing down a little more. Her closet door was slightly ajar, and I could see the corner of that paisley dress, the one she'd worn to homecoming the month before. Navy blue background with swirls of burgundy and gold, it had made her look like something out of a magazine. The first step was the hardest. Just walking into a room felt like crossing some invisible line. But once I was there, once I was looking at all those clothes hanging so neatly on their hangers, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was need. I found everything I was looking for, though I hadn't even realized I was looking for it. The dress, of course, but also the delicate things underneath. A silk slip the color of champagne, stockings that felt like whispers against my fingertips, and yes, even the intimate garments that would make everything fit properly. Getting dressed was like learning a new language. The panties first, then the slip, smooth and cool against my skin. The stockings required patience I didn't know I had. Carefully rolling them up my legs, trying not to run them with my nervous fingers. Each piece felt like a small revelation. The dress came last, and it was perfect. Not too tight, not too loose, as if it had been waiting for exactly this moment. I found Sarah's brown leather boots in the back of her closet, and surprisingly, they fit. Then came the discovery that made everything complete. A short brunette wig, what people called a wiglet back then, tucked away in a hat box. But I wasn't ready for the mirror yet. Not quite. There was one more thing. Sarah's makeup collection was impressive, even by 80s standards. Foundation, powder, blush, eyeshadow in every shade imaginable, mascara, lipstick. I'd watched her apply it so many times, but doing it myself was entirely different. My hands shook as I tried to blend the foundation. The eyeshadow, a soft brown that seemed safe, went on unevenly at first. I had to wipe it off and start again. And again. The mascara was terrifying. One wrong move, and I'd look like a raccoon. But slowly, carefully, a face began to emerge in the small, compact mirror. Not Sarah's face, and not quite the face I'd known as mine my entire life. Someone new. Someone who had always been there, waiting. When I finally turned to look in the full-length mirror on Sarah's closet door, I couldn't breathe. The boy I had been was beautifully transformed. Standing there was someone I'd been waiting to meet my entire life without knowing it. The dress fit perfectly. The wig framed my face in a way that made my features look softer, more delicate. The makeup, despite my amateur application, had transformed me completely. For the first time in my 15 years, I felt beautiful. Not handsome, I looked cute in my very own way, but genuinely, authentically beautiful. And more than that, I felt right. Like puzzle pieces that had been scattered my whole life had suddenly clicked into place. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, turning slightly to see myself from different angles, watching how the dress moved, how the light caught the paisley pattern. I practiced walking in the boots, surprised at how natural it felt. I smiled at my reflection and watched this new person smile back. This was me. This was who I was meant to be, at least in this moment, in this room, with no one watching. Except someone was about to be watching. The sound of a car door slamming in the driveway hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so lost in the moment, so caught up in this incredible discovery, that I'd forgotten the world outside still existed. Panic doesn't begin to describe what I felt. This was terror on a level I'd never experienced. All those feelings of rightness, of beauty, of finally seeing myself clearly, they all crashed into the reality of what would happen if I was caught. I could hear footsteps on the front porch, keys jingling. Sarah was home early. What would you have done in that moment? Hide or risk being seen? I ran, not walked, not hurried. I ran through the house in those boots, the dress swishing around my legs, the wig threatening to slide off my head, down the stairs to the basement, where our ping-pong table sat in the corner like salvation. By the time I heard the front door open upstairs, I was already trying to transform back. But there's no quick way to remove stockings, no fast method for wiping away carefully applied makeup. I managed to get the dress off and threw on the jeans and t-shirt I'd been wearing earlier, but I could still feel traces of lipstick on my mouth, still see hints of eyeshadow when I looked in the small mirror by our basement bar. "Michael?" Sarah called from upstairs. "You down there?" I grabbed a ping-pong paddle and tried to look casual, like I'd been playing alone this whole time. Which, I realized with sick irony, wasn't that far from the truth. "Yeah," I called back, hoping my voice sounded normal, just hitting some balls around. But I could still smell her perfume on my skin. I could still feel the ghost of the slip against my legs. And when I caught a glimpse of myself in that basement mirror, I could still see traces of the person I'd been just minutes before. Sarah found me 10 minutes later in the kitchen, pretending to make a sandwich. I'd managed to scrub away most of the makeup, but I felt exposed, like she could see right through me to what I'd been doing. She looked at me for a long moment, longer than usual. Her eyes seemed to take in everything. My slightly smudged appearance, my nervous energy, the way I couldn't quite meet her gaze. "What were you doing down there?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. It was the question I'd been dreading, the one I had no good answer for. Because what could I say? That I'd been playing ping pong by myself? That I'd just been hanging out in the basement for fun? "Nothing," I said, which is what guilty children always say when they've been doing exactly something. She continued to study my face, and I was certain she could see everything. The traces of foundation I'd missed, the slightly smudged mascara, the way my lips looked different even without the lipstick. She had to know. There was no way she couldn't know. But instead of pressing further, instead of demanding answers or confronting me directly, she just nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "I'm going to start dinner. Mom and Dad will be home soon." And that was it. She turned away and started pulling things from the refrigerator, acting like it was just another ordinary Thursday afternoon. But I could feel the weight of everything unsaid hanging in the air between us. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself in that mirror, wearing Sarah's dress, feeling beautiful and right and terrified all at once. I kept expecting her to knock on my door, to demand explanations, to tell our parents what she'd suspected. But morning came quietly, as mornings do. I got dressed for school in my usual uniform of jeans and a flannel shirt, trying to push the memory of silk and paisley out of my mind. That's when I saw them, there on the floor of my closet, thrown in a careless heap just as I had left them in my panicked rush the day before, were Sarah's clothes. The paisley dress, wrinkled now, the pantyhose in a tangle, the slip and panties wadded up together. I felt my face flush red, heat spreading from my cheeks down my neck. Fear ran through my body like ice water. In my terror yesterday, in my desperate scramble to get back to normal before Sarah found me, I had grabbed her clothes and run. I had forgotten the most important part, putting everything back where it belonged. What now? I thought, staring at the evidence of my transgression scattered across my closet floor. She knows. I'm caught. What will happen to me? My hands shook as I gathered up the clothes, trying to smooth out the wrinkles, trying to make them look like they hadn't been worn by someone who had no right to wear them. I hid them under my bed and spent the entire day at school in agony, imagining the conversation that would surely be waiting for me when I got home. But when I returned that afternoon, the house was quiet, normal. Sarah was at cheerleading practice, Mom was at work, Dad wouldn't be home for hours. This was my chance. Maybe my only chance. I crept down to Sarah's room with the clothes bundled in my arms, my heart hammering against my ribs. Carefully, quietly, I put everything back exactly where it belonged. The dress on its hanger, the slip in her dresser drawer, the pantyhose rolled neatly in their designated spot. As I closed her closet door, I wondered what she had thought when she discovered the missing clothes. Had she known immediately what had happened? Had she searched the house, putting the pieces together? Happy. She never said anything to me about it afterwards. Not that day. Not ever. But I caught her looking at me sometimes with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was she suspicious? Probably never found out, or was there something else there, something that looked almost like understanding? In the weeks and months that followed, I found myself drawn to feminine things in ways I'd never allowed myself to notice before. The texture of certain fabrics, the way light caught in jewelry, the graceful lines of women's clothing. I started paying attention to details I'd previously ignored, the way makeup could transform a face, how different styles of dress could express different moods, the subtle power of feminine presentation. Some days I felt more drawn to traditionally masculine expression. Other days I craved the softness, the elegance, the different kind of confidence that came with feminine styling. I learned that both were equally valid parts of who I was. Over the years, I began experimenting in small ways. Buying clothes that were technically for men but had feminine touches, softer fabrics, more fitted silhouettes, colors that leaned toward what society considered feminine. I learned about skincare, about fashion, about the art of presentation. I discovered that masculinity and femininity weren't opposites, but rather points on a spectrum that I could explore. I've become more comfortable with this duality. I've learned to embrace both sides of myself. The traditionally masculine Michael who works in construction and watches football on Sundays, and the part of me that loves the feel of silk and the ritual of getting dressed up. They're not contradictory. They're complementary. I still cross-dress till this day. When I do, I remember that 15-year-old boy seeing himself clearly for the first time. It's about expression. It's about honoring all the different facets of who I am. It's about refusing to limit myself to society's expectations of what a man should be. The clothes are different now. I have my own dresses, my own makeup, my own style that reflects who I've become. But the feeling is the same. That sense of completeness. That rightness. I'm grateful for that scared, curious 15-year-old who was brave enough to walk through that door, even if he didn't know where it would lead. Have you ever had a moment where you saw yourself differently for the first time? A moment when you discovered something about yourself that surprised you, scared you, or changed how you understood who you are? Do you think my sister was warning me that day, or accepting me? Was she trying to protect me from a world that might not understand, or was she giving me permission to explore who I might be? Let me know in the comments below. Share your own moments of discovery if you're comfortable doing so. Sometimes the most important conversations happen when we're brave enough to be vulnerable with each other. And remember, whoever you are, however you see yourself, you deserve to be loved and accepted for exactly who you are. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next video.
The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.